Hello, welcome to another segment of Business Way Outside the Box. My name is Steve Dubin, your host. I am the owner of PR Works, a lightly used public relations firm based in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We cover the topics of really unusual businesses or an unusual and effective approach to business. Today's guest has several decades of experience in sales as a salesperson and as a sales coach and advisor. Ken Cheo is a sales coach who has helped me personally and focuses on several different niches within the market, both manufacturing, sales, professional services, and software. In particular, he likes to help folks with complicated sales process and also those that have a long sales cycle. Let me welcome you, Ken Cheo, from Our Sales Coach.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
Good to have you. And Ken, tell me, I think the first thing that comes to mind, to everybody's mind these days, before we think of almost any topic, is how is the pandemic affecting our businesses? And you and I have talked offline about how the pandemic actually offers some advantage and opportunity to sales folks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the most obvious is there's real needs that weren't there before the pandemic, and I have clients that are participating in making masks and in making uh, test kits for testing for COVID. I have clients that are making parts for ventilators, and this is not new. They've been doing this since March, April, May, that time frame. I have another client that's making controls for freezers. Now there's a huge opportunity there for that when they launch and start to distribute the vaccinations. So that's the obvious one. But everybody should have known starting in March what markets that they're currently in that will be affected and have pivoted. Like, for example, I had a client that sells office supplies. One of the markets is schools. When the schools closed, we shifted. So they were shifting into municipal, state, and office essential services. I mean, the state published in March, what are essential services? Let's help those essential services keep going and keep our clients employed. So this is not something that's new. It's something that you should be doing now, getting ready for next year without the pandemic, but it was obviously very important to do and continues to be important.
Ken, and the other part of the pandemic in sales is we talked about there's the possibility that our prospects are more of a captive audience and more available to us because they may be hunkered down somewhere. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have some clients that predominantly were in automotive and commercial aviation. Those markets still continue to be slow, especially commercial aviation, but automotive is coming back. But really, again, it's something that you should be doing now, regardless of the pandemic, is looking at your markets, looking at where you're strong, where is your competitive advantage, and then externally, where is the opportunity? So I'll give you another example. I have a food manufacturing client. When we got going prior to COVID, our objective was to sell more of their branded products, to build their brand and get into some more opportunities for the branded products. When COVID came, a lot of their competitors were having difficulty, and there were a lot of people that were finding them, and we just pivoted to work towards the pipeline that they already had and building that pipeline for more co-packing opportunities, and they've just been slammed with that. Got them into some new markets, some new product areas where they could really build on that and leverage that into some new areas. as the pandemic now subsides, when and if it does, now they can also go back to building their own branded products.
And from a simple logistics standpoint, um, prospects are available. Talk a little bit about how, um, the barrier of voicemail, email, texting would block us from even talking to targeted prospects and how the pandemic may have impacted that.
Yeah, that's really interesting because through the pandemic, everybody was like, oh, how are we going to get a hold of people? Nobody's available. Nobody's going to their office. And it was the opposite. Think about it. Where were you going? Where were you going in April? Were you getting in your car? Were you going anywhere? You're going to the grocery store. That's it. Everybody was more available than they've ever been. They weren't going to meetings. They weren't going to the office and being in meetings all day. They were going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting. The Zoom meetings got shorter as people got zoomed out, and that's still happening. People are so available now. If you just pick up the phone or got a little creative with LinkedIn and email, and that combination will, as long as you have the right person you're trying to get a hold of with the right message, people are, I think, still more available than they've ever been. That's changing now that since offices are reopened and people are getting more back on track. But I think back in April and May, it was easy to get a hold of people. You just got to catch them between Zoom meetings.
And what about the comment from some that it's insensitive to even attempt to sell and do commerce during a pandemic? How do you respond?
Well, my clients are really focused on keeping their employees employed and keeping them paid. And there's nothing really insensitive about that. It's just doing the right thing. And I don't think anybody should be selling things to people who don't want them. That's how you give sales a bad name. Again, right now is the time to be assessing your markets. Where are the opportunities? Who are you going after? Be focused, and the markets that you choose should be people who need what you provide, and there's a good reason for that. And once you've determined that, and you know what your competitive advantage is, and you've looked at that's the internal analysis. The external analysis is what's happening out there in the marketplace that would indicate that they really are interested in what you have to offer now because there's something that's happening in their marketplace. And when you've discovered that and you know what those opportunities are, you can create really relevant and specific messages that will get their attention, and then you'll be talking to people who actually have a problem for you to solve. And when that occurs, it's not insensitive. You're out there helping them solve a problem that they want to solve anyway, and you're just providing a service. That's how people should sell, regardless of the pandemic.
Okay. And one of the things I wanted to touch upon is that I know you've recently launched a women focused division within your sales consultancy. Can you tell me why women have any different experience in sales than men?
Well, I don't know if I'm credentialed to talk about that, but that was really an innovation that was developed by my Chief Growth Officer, Christine McIntyre. And in just her networking opportunity, really, that was her brainstorm as a result of her networking with them. And she first came to me and she's like, with this idea, and I'm like, well, women don't really have different problems with sales than men. And the more that she discussed that with me, the more I realized that that's not necessarily true. That women are they behave differently when they're amongst their peers, and I think that there's there's an energy that is different when they're just women together and they're working together and they uh, and so I think there's different reasons for it, but I do think that you know a lot of the some of the things that they say were, well, in my marketplace, people are really more inclined to want to talk to a 50-year-old man, not a 50-year-old woman. And this is just a mindset. It may be true, but it's a perception that if they as they work together in a group of their peers, then they overcome that, and then they're working from a position of more confidence, more courage, and helping each other overcome those limiting beliefs.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think one of the challenges in sales, including mine, is that I thought that I was a natural salesperson. I have a comfort with people. I'm able to help them. I'm able to do some investigation and determine what their needs are, and assume that they're going to close naturally. What are some of the common mistakes that quote natural salespeople make before they're trained by professionals like you?
Yeah, well, some mistakes that people make are really not having a focused market approach. That's the first thing. That they have a tendency to be selling everything to everyone, in which case you can't be an expert. People want to do business with experts. The other thing is if you're not really focused on who you're going after, and we try to get our clients working 2 to 4 specific markets, then you can create a marketing plan to really develop leads. If you're trying to market in all different directions, it's impossible to do that. The other thing is putting together relevant messaging, like I was suggesting before. You can't really understand your market and have really relevant messages if you're not being specific. The third thing is your prospecting strategy. There's common prospecting mistakes like being dependent on just passive channels, for example, and manufacturers have a tendency to do that. They have a website, they have clients that are buying, but they're not really proactive, or they are too dependent on a single channel. A lot of service professionals, for example, when I ask them, well, how do you, what do you do to prospect? They say it's mostly word of mouth. And referrals are obviously one of the best ways to get business, but if that's all you're doing, it can be too inconsistent and unpredictable. And so you have to, we try to get our clients working 4 active channels, and that way you have two that are really bringing the lion's share of your business, and the other ones are supporting that along with your marketing strategy. So your marketing now is supporting your prospecting, and your prospecting is supporting your marketing. So it's integrated and they're effective and working together.
Okay, and while we're on that subject of referrals, what is the way to prime that pump with customers in particular who've had a positive experience, and they might be traveling in the same circles of other folks who would be prime prospects for you?
Yeah, the first thing is, well, there's two sources for referrals, which is a good thing. So if you want to have 4 active channels, you can have two right there. One is your existing clients, and the second is strategic partnerships or centers of influence, sometimes they call them. So it's really two independent channels, and you should be working both. I think everybody should. Okay. When it comes to clients, the first thing is ask. I find that most of the time people are not asking or asking enough. I mean, I just got some really good referrals from 2 clients that were financial planners, and they aren't even in a B2B environment. But I just asked them, hey, do you have any clients that are salespeople? And they said, yeah. And then I've got now a top producer of a very large software company as a client, and another really good prospect of a company that has 10 salespeople, and they're interested. And it's the reason why those happened is because I asked. The second reason is I didn't ask them to do anything except suggest they take my call. A lot of times people are not getting referrals because their sources think they need to sell it for them. I don't want my clients selling my service. All I want them to do is suggest that they take my call and make sure they know I'm not going to give them a sales pitch. I'm just going to have a quick conversation. And then the third thing was I was very specific, down to the very person that you want to meet. And the more specific you are, the easier it is going to be for your sources to refer to you. And I don't think people really have a process that enables them to be effective in doing that. And so I think you should be asking all your happy clients for referrals, but when it comes to these strategic partners or centers of influence, then you want to be really strategic and really be evaluating the nature of those relationships you have and be limiting, because you want to really be spending a lot of time, more time with the people who are really strategic for you and helping them help so that they can help you.
Great. And one of the things you talk about is all too often salespeople present before they have fully analyzed the situation and prepared for a presentation. That sometimes they're talking price before they've even created value. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the information gathering prior to a proposal? And why that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a common thing. It's hard to resist the urge to jump in and start telling people how you can solve someone's problem before you really understood the problem in the first place. And if you do spend the time, and it doesn't, if you spend an extra 15 to 30 minutes with somebody to really understand why is the problem happening in the first place, how serious is it, are they committed to solving the problem, how would they make that decision, who would be involved, and when can they decide, and what do they want to invest in, you take the pressure off that presentation. The problem is that we are jumping the gun and then providing that information too soon, in which case there's nothing left to really talk about than how much. And even worse, I think, like I said, like you said, maybe half of our business is working with manufacturers. They tend to be, getting themselves qualified to bid, and then just going in and talking to purchasing people, asking, "Can I quote something? Can I quote something?" And then to make it worse, once they do have a request with specific details, they're firing off proposals or quotes in email. Well, at that point, they've lost all control, and there's really no reason for their prospect to get back to them and give them feedback on that unless they want to buy or they have a question. And when you're operating that way, there's a tendency to have, a very low close rate. It's tainted because these companies have existing customers that come back and buy over and over again. So they think, oh, my close rate is really high, and it is. It's probably 90% on existing. But where's the new business? What's the close rate on new opportunities? If you isolate that and take a look at that, it could be as low as 5%, and typically maybe 20, 25. And so when you have a new opportunity, you're wasting your time on 80% of those deals. And then, the other problem we already talked about is they're just not being proactive enough in finding those new opportunities.
Well, Ken, that's a lot of information to take in, and a lot of good specific advice. Uh, if people want to pursue and have a further conversation with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can go to my website, www.oursalescoach.com. You could send me an email, kcheo@oursalescoach.com. Find me on LinkedIn at Ken Cheo is my LinkedIn, or give us a call. Our phone number is on the website, and now is really the time to really be looking at, okay, what's your marketing plan for next year? What's your prospecting plan for next year? What's your referral plan for next year? How are you going to track things? Are you tracking the right things? And so now's the time to be putting all that together. As in fact, we're running a special program now. We're running a 4-session program just to do all 4 of those things. So it'll give those clients a competitive advantage to start off 2021.
Okay, Ken, thank you so much. It has been a very thorough, interesting, useful interview. I appreciate your time and you being with us. I am going to sign off. This has been another episode of Business Way Outside the Box, sponsored by PR Works. If you know of someone who has an unusual business or takes a really unusual approach to business, please contact us. We look forward to determining who our next guest will be. Thanks again, Ken.
Yeah, thank you. Go
All
close
right.
something, everyone.
Thank you.